On this podcast, you'll find interviews with high-performing, successful individuals in life sciences. On a weekly basis, we cover their proven methods, principles, strategies, and mindsets to implement new technologies that scale to meet the needs of people in our world.
Mason, welcome to the Life Science Success Podcast.
Thank you.
Greatly appreciate you being here, and thanks for being on.
Thanks for the invitation. I've been excited to sit down.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So could you just maybe take a minute and tell everybody a little bit about yourself? You know, where is your career? Where did you start, and where are you now? And what kind of brought you to Rowan, where you are currently?
Sure. No, happy to, and thank you again. It's great to be able to sit down and share a big picture project, a vision for the future, and things that I think we can all really be excited about in life science and technology. So my background, I've spent the last 20 years working in innovation districts, research parks, places that have leveraged real estate for mission-driven work,
Nice.
typically involving higher education institutions. Prior to coming to Georgia to lead Rowan, I was the chief operating officer at the Research Triangle Park Foundation in North Carolina, and found a tremendous amount of fulfillment and joy in working for a nonprofit where you own a significant amount of real estate, but the work behind that is really led by stewardship.
Sure.
And a vision for a place that is really to serve those generations that are coming behind you in that future workforce. And it's through that work over the past 20 years. That have included life science, of course, and biotech, but also ag tech and different technology and cybersecurity, a whole variety of industry verticals that we've been able to tap into.
Very good, very interesting. So is Rowan associated with a university, or are you aligned to a university in Georgia?
We are. We actually have 5 amazing higher education institutions on our board of directors. So not just tangentially, but actually on our governing board. We have Georgia Tech, Emory University, the University of Georgia, Spelman College and HBCU in Atlanta, and Georgia Gwinnett College. So those 5 very diverse institutions, they're not all R1s, they're not all public. It's a great mix and I think a great representation of what the Atlanta Metro and frankly what I think companies are looking for in their workforce, which is a great diversity in the ways that they connect and the views that are brought in to take on global challenges. Our higher education institutions really represent that.
Yeah, sure. And I mean, where did the idea for Rowan, kind of evolve from? What sort of brought it into play?
Sure. It started about 7 years ago, and it was out of this recognition that the next 100 years are going to be defined by 3 key areas, 3 key challenges, really. How we feed the world, how we care for ourselves, and how we care for the environment. Where we take on those challenges, who is a part of that, how we make that an accessible problem-solving process, how we come up with solutions that are accessible, is really at the heart of Rowan. And it was that idea, that purpose, that vision that was the seed from which grew, okay, well, where could this place call home? Where a foundation would be the steward of that vision and mission in perpetuity forever as that real estate is developed in attracting those companies to focus on those challenges.
And so, and then in terms of the campus itself or the facility itself, I mean, what are the benefits of being a part of that facility?
A few things. One, geography. We have 2,000 acres, fully entitled. We can build out over 22 million square feet as a part of the development. We have a mixed use core with multifamily residential and retail and hospitality and all the things that you would want to have in a vibrant, community. Then we have medium density and low density, so companies can come in and they can kind of choose which flavor of ice cream they want for their specific development. So we have a great footprint of real estate where we can scale. The second is really around proximity. We are located in the Atlanta metro area, just under 7 million people that are surrounding us. Again, tremendously diverse group workforce. We are directly between Athens, where the University of Georgia is located, and Atlanta with Georgia Tech and Emory and others. And within that 1 hour drive around Rowan, there's over 75,000 annual graduates walking across a stage and getting a diploma.
Wow.
So you have this geography, you have this density of workforce, and then the final one I would say is diversity in the industry sectors. You know, Atlanta is known for headquarters and great thought leaders in these mix of fields. And I think that those are really important because the challenges ahead of us are not going to be solved by any one institution. They're going to be solved because of points of convergence where different ideas and perspectives and experiences come together to say, okay, how do we think about this in a different way? Because the way we've been taking it on is not getting us to where we need to be.
Right.
And that's really where we want to live, is at those points of convergence and create them.
And I feel like there is a new level of these sort of innovation centers, I guess you could call them, collections of, like you said, I mean, it could be a collection of not just technology, but it also could be agriculture. It also could be, life sciences, et cetera. There are a lot of these facilities that are going up, and I feel like, I mean, Georgia has quite a few that are right now, just kind of coming up as well. There's other places like New York and places around the country that are also building their own. But how is Rowan different, and what is kind of the the advantage, I guess, for companies that are involved?
Sure. I think it's great that there's a mix of people taking on these types of challenges.
Sure.
I think we need that, not just Georgia. That'd be a lonely party. We need that diversity of people. So I think that's really wonderful. And I can say that with all sincerity as a nonprofit where, our desire is to find solutions, right? I think some of the things that help us to stand out are, Atlanta is a globally connected city. Right.
Sure.
You can get wherever you need to be from the Atlanta airport, which is about 40 miles from the from the Rowan site. So you can zip around, get U.S. internationally to your location. There's great connectivity between things like Science Square and Tech Square, which Georgia Tech is leading. There's Executive Park Place that Emory is leading just inside of 285. UGA is developing a lot of ag tech work within Athens. So there is a great mix of activities in Georgia, facilities, programs, different
Right.
partnerships. And I think what you want to find, whether it's in Georgia or it's in North Carolina or it's in St. Louis with places like a Cortex, or in Philadelphia with the University City Science Center, what you want to have is a good mix of leaders that see their strength and the unique value that they bring, but they also come with a desire to invite others to the table and to participate and be a part of it. And that's the spirit that we bring Rowan forward for Georgia. And that's certainly something that I learned to lead and serve in that way as a part of Research Triangle Park.
Wonderful. Yeah, and I mean, and I think it is so important that like you said, that both the infrastructure is there from supporting the level of activity, as well as having the people is absolutely critical. But at the same time, it's just how do you keep that? How do you make it a community where people are coming to innovate and kind of build that next generation of technology?
That's right. Well, I think when you have a foundation where even as we sell land or we do ground leases or we do our own development, our foundation will always oversee the covenants, the programming, the partnerships, attracting investors forever, much like a university campus, right? There is that in perpetuity idea to it. And I think, again, that's encouraging whether I'm a company and I'm investing $1 billion in an R&D facility, and I want to make sure that the other companies around me share those same values and uses within their developments, or it's around the workforce that you're wanting to recruit that want to be in a setting that is activated, that is a place to grab a coffee, has some housing options, has some residential within it, has some connectivity regionally. So you do have, I think, more and more, coming out of COVID and even before that, but this recognition of work is more than work, right?
Absolutely.
The why of our work could not be more important, I think, to the workforce that is coming behind us. And I think that why it really needs to lead in the invitation for Rowan, certainly, of why do you want to be a part of this knowledge community and join us?
No, absolutely. And I mean, in terms of the way that companies and people get involved in Rowan, so if somebody were to want space there, how would they get started? How would that happen?
Our website is rowanlife.com. We talk about LinkedIn a lot of different ways. I'm very active on LinkedIn and happy to connect with people there. So certainly online, digitally, reaching out to me directly through our website. We actually have several pages on development where people can drop in contact information. And that's both for companies that may be looking for a home. It could also be for vendors and providers that may serve those companies. And we actually have a list that we bring together so that we can be a resource to the companies as they come in.
And do you see larger companies also having some sort of presence there as well?
Yeah, our main focus right now, because of the scale of 2,000 acres and the infrastructure is under construction right now. That'll be wrapping up in the second quarter of 2024. And we have sites that could be 2 acres. It could be up to 50 plus acres. Most of the companies that we're talking to right now are actually internationally based, and they're looking for a North America either headquarters or R&D innovation foothold, entering the market and having a connection to a diverse workforce. We have companies that are looking at about 5 acres, a little bit more, and others that are over 50. So there is a scale to what we have right now. As we move forward and we get into the mixed use component, that we'll have multi-tenant buildings,
Sure.
multi-tenant lab space there as well.
Yeah. And so I would imagine that also assets that are coming out as, potential new drugs or, devices even, could be, brought into this space as well. If you're a really small organization, kind of evolving along, but it would be nice to have, these other sort of larger companies that essentially might be interested in those same technologies, right? Kind of
Right.
observing. And like you said, having the international partners as well is a
Yes.
pretty interesting, adjustment to a lot of the story that I hear whenever people talk about these facilities.
That's right. And for us, we are one arrow in the quiver for the state. We have 2,000 acres, and we have these larger companies we're talking to. If startups have reached out before, smaller companies have reached out before, and I've been able to connect them to a Georgia Tech or an Emory or a UGA or others where they can have a path to Georgia, locate, grow, attract investment, scale up. I hope they stay and continue to scale. My hope, for some of them, they'll grow and they'll need 20, 30 acres. They'll need a larger footprint, or they'll want to stay in the metro and be in a different environment. It's a lot cheaper to develop at Rowan than it would be in a downtown urban environment. And depending on the types of building program, that could be helpful. So it's good to just have a network of colleagues where I may not be the solution at Rowan, but I have other friends around me where we can say, look, let me make a connection and see if they're able to help you be successful.
Especially since you did it at Research Triangle Park as well, and now have come to Georgia as well. I mean, I would imagine you probably do have a lot of connections, across the space.
There's a lot of folks. It's a small world. When you start thinking about innovation districts and research parks, it's been great at the conference downstairs, thousands of people walking around, but I'm going by the different booths and I see friends from, other states that have moved around over the past couple of decades. And there's a recognition within that professional cohort of this. I keep going back to diversity of input, multiple partnerships, making a bigger table and inviting people to contribute. And that's really, it's encouraging.
Yeah. And in terms of the conference, let's talk a little bit about Bio 2023. What are your thoughts? I mean, what do you think of the conference?
It's been really interesting. I've had probably half my meetings have been in the Bio conference and half I was in Cambridge this morning. We've met with a few companies that have existing relationships or an interest in Georgia. So it's been a helpful, always great place to network. And, it's like the United Nations down there. You go and walk around and you have how many countries just, can literally step across the aisle and be around the world. So that's exciting.
Yeah, so I mean, it's interesting how they've broken it up, right? I mean, they have kind of like the bioprocessing space, the contracting space. There's areas for countries. I mean, I feel like they divided the space really well. There's like a level of organization, and it's fairly easy when once you know somebody's number address to walk around down there.
That's right.
What's your number? Where are you standing?
That's right. The app is invaluable.
Yes.
I tried to scan through finding a company just on a piece of paper, and they wasn't alphabetical, and that was just a non-starter.
Sure.
So you have to have some digital pathway to be able to find people.
Yes.
But it's been great.
Yeah, in terms of like the longer term, sort of outlook for Rowan, what is the overall thought in terms of people that you will have in kind of cycle through the property, and then there are other people that I would imagine that you're looking for long term tenants,
Sure.
as well.
Um, Rowan is a 50-plus year project, right? This is
Wow.
something where I'll have the privilege of being a part of it for a certain amount of time. And then there'll be another, group of leaders that come through the foundation. That's really freeing when you have a vision to serve other people, right? You know that you have a responsibility to reach for the stars, charter a path, bring others around you, and then it's going to be other people's turn. That same spirit I bring to conversations with companies that as they pass through, some of those relationships may be just more programmatic or networking or connection to a faculty member or a student, whatever it may be. And that's fantastic. There's some value that's realized in that. Others will be those companies that come in and they're looking for a home. They're looking for a place to be able to grow and do more than build buildings, but actually become a part of a community and do their great work. And that'll be the evolution over time you start with relationships, you start with trust and confidence, you start with growing a brand in a market, and then you start to secure some wins, and that will continue to evolve over time.
So you said that the initial, I mean, since you talked about the 50 years, and then I'm going to come back to the second quarter of next year. What will be finished in the second quarter of next year?
Second quarter of next year, we will have our first 2 miles of complete streets designed and construction, ribbon cutting, opening of the roadway. This was undeveloped land. It was primarily timberland that we acquired. And the roadway is not just driving areas. We actually have underground power, underground fiber duct bank, trails on either side, a multimodal trail, and then kind of a running, walking path on the other side. We have all native landscape. We're working with the U.S. Green Building Council on site certification, which is kind of lead for horizontal development. We're wanting to walk the walk around sustainability and ESG with our development because we want our companies to expect that. And when
Sure.
they come in to be thinking about renewable energy and how they build their facilities, so that there's 2 lanes of driving area. We've gotten rid of traditional curb and gutter because concrete is one of the greatest contributors to CO2. You probably know that. And we've actually shrunken the road width and then removed that whole strip of concrete out of our road profile. And then we actually are dealing with stormwater in the middle median with all native landscaping. So kind of having ugly chain link fenced areas off to the side, we won't be doing that. So that's what will open in the second quarter of 24. With that, and the companies that we're talking to now, and would love to talk to more companies as we're moving along, it's a great time to think about, well, what are the sites that align with these companies as they come in? Because design, once a property is secured, design is going to take 12 months. Construction is going to take at least 12 months. So it lines up really well for all of that to come together at one time in 24, 25.
Perfect. And then in terms of the theme for this year for Bio 2023, it's stand up for science, stand up for innovation. How does Rowan align with that? What's the support that your organization has?
Yeah, I love that saying. I think it's really interesting. When I first read that and I thought about Rowan, honestly, I thought about my daughter, because where I want Rowan to be is I want us to be something people can stand on,
Sure.
right? And that it is not about Rowan being successful per se. It's about us creating a platform for other people to step up and have greater access to opportunities and the vision that they have. And my daughter, same way, she'll be 14 on Saturday. So she is, and she is ambitious and excited. And, I want her to feel excited about standing up, excited about science, excited about seeing herself in that role, not just hearing about a project her dad's working on, but, well, what could this be for you, right? This is going to be here after my professional career's over. What do you want here to be able to stand up and reach for what you imagine?
Right. Yeah, I think about both from a life science perspective, there's all these great things that are being done in terms of the cancer, curing drugs and things like that. There's a lot of great innovations that are coming. There's also wonderful innovations on the AI side, right? So there's on the computing capabilities and just all the things that we could do there. And then you think about, I mean, at least in my generation, right? we've spent a lot of time talking about the environment, very little time actually doing. I mean, there have been a lot of people I think that have tried to do really good work. I won't discredit that,
Right.
but I also think that there's a lot more that we need to do to be able to really have an impact on greenhouse gases and everything else that is currently essentially eroding our environment and save things for the future. If we're going to extend lives, then you need to think about, okay, so what's the planet that we're
Right.
going to live in
Yeah.
the end?
Yeah.
So
No, that's
yeah.
right. That's right. And I think, that comes down to implementation. Talk is great. That's why we're starting with our infrastructure and
Mhm.
doing things that are very different from what the Department of Transportation typically does. And they kind of invited us in to do that, to be a change maker and saying,
Right.
you have one owner with 2,000 acres, bring ideas to us. Help us think about ways that if we can rewrite a road profile, as simple as that sounds, until you think about how many thousands of miles of roadway there are in Georgia and beyond,
Sure.
then we can learn from that. So I think getting into implementation, I think it's a great point, and being able to um, test ideas, even at that scale, being willing to fail and see what works and what doesn't. That's part of the innovation cycle. Without it, it's just kind of status quo.
Yeah, absolutely. So Mason, there are three questions that I like to ask every guest.
Okay.
What inspires you?
My kids inspire me. And I mentioned my daughter. We have a son. He's 15, and thinking about a place that I want them to be excited about is a great litmus test to know whether I'm spending my time in the right way.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah. I mean, it's a great way to think about it because your kids honestly aren't that far away from making critical
right?
decisions about, what will their future be. We talked a lot on the Life Science Success podcast about how a lot of us started out thinking that we were going to go do one thing and then we completely veered off to a different direction. So,
That's
I
right.
mean, that myself included. So yeah, it's really interesting to think about, that kind of 14, 15-year-old,
Yeah,
making those decisions and starting to think about what will it be whenever I step out into the world and the workforce and
right.
things. So
And asking for their input. This is a world we're creating for those behind us, coming after us, and we did have them as a part of the process, right?
right,
And that's exciting. It can be scary at times, but it's also, again, kind of freeing.
absolutely. What concerns you?
Um, I think it would go back to the point that you made of taking action.
Mm,
There's a lot of words, there's a lot of data. You talk about AI or ChatGPT. There's so much information that we can just spend literally the entire day taking in information.
Sure.
But while you're taking in information, is that detracting from your time and doing and getting things done and implementing the things that you are learning and consuming into your brain? And I think, it's easy to feel really intellectual and not necessarily apply the application of what your intellect has brought.
Right.
And I
Right.
think that, having a space where implementation is a primary objective of doing is, I'm hoping to create a place where that happens more
Right.
as a part of the culture.
Yeah, I think I think there's another quote about this, but essentially I've written about this also that there's a real unfortunate disconnect that I see in the world. One where people see activity as being getting stuff done, but then whenever you actually sort of look at like who moved something forward, versus like just generating a lot of internal motion, right?
Mm-hmm.
To me, I guess you could kind of say the same thing about, the way that we communicate. There are people that are really good communicators about what specifically they're doing on a daily basis versus other people. It may be quiet, but actually will be getting stuff done right
Yeah.
behind the scenes. And it's important to have a mix of both. I mean, I'm not sort of discrediting that, you need to tell people what you're doing at the same time, but at the same time, especially being on a podcast, but at the same time, it's important to really move the ball down the field and
Right.
really get things done.
Yeah, no, it's always good. I mean, we should always be learning. I think being a lifelong learner is just a privilege in many
Absolutely.
ways. The shift is, and it can be through conversations, it can be through your work, through your personal life. It's just putting those things into motion and application to help bring about change in the areas that you're passionate about, right? The things that interest you and the gifts that you have.
Yeah. Last question. What excites you?
What excites me? I just love getting to live and interact with people every day that are interested in serving and leading and making good things happen. That's just, I'm inherently try to be a pretty positive person, and it's just a joy to be able to be around others that that are going to be very different from me, but they have a passion, a conviction in their particular area, and it's just exciting to be able to do that every day.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Mason, thank you so much for being on the Life Science Success Podcast. I greatly appreciate our conversation. Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for listening to Life Science Success. For complete details about this podcast, including show notes, how to get in touch with guests, and more episodes, please visit www.lifesciencesuccess.com. If there's someone you'd like for us to invite to the show as a guest, please let me know by sending me a message at the podcast website. Please click subscribe on your favorite podcast app, share the podcast, or tell a friend about it, and last but not least, rate the podcast. Thank you again.